Hi there. Welcome to another edition of Founder Focus, from Startup to Stand Up, the video fireside chat series where we chat to interesting founders, discover more about their journey, and find insights and inspiration for the entire founder community. As ever, my co-host Matt Mower is with me today. He's on the radar as the CEO of Agendascope should be. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you, Tom. Yeah, very good.
Excellent. I am too, and I am very excited to introduce our guest, who is Graham Gillen from Eccountinc. Graham has a background in management accountancy, but he is also a progressive man who is looking to the future, as he is a B leader and a consultant for those wishing to look into the certification and journey that is the B Corp movement. So Graham, welcome. It's fantastic to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's brilliant to be here, yeah.
Matt has the questions as ever. So Matt, should we dive on in?
Let's go. So Graham, question number one. What was the light bulb moment that, looking back, seems most significant to you at the outset of your journey?
Okay, I think as Tom alluded to, I have a background in management accountancy. So back whenever I sort of left industry and decided to go out on my own, that was almost my hand was forced a little bit. It was the sort of the recession. It was 2012. So yeah, my role sort of changed and I decided to step out. I had the opportunity to get some immediate consultancy, which just felt part of my week. When in the midst of building a house, just felt a natural progression. Start a company up and run with it. And that's the way it went until 2020, the pandemic. Caused a bit of a reset, a bit of a rethink. Some of my clients decided to sort of step away from me because they were very involved in like hotel fit out, office fit out, which I don't need to explain why those industries struggled during the initial stages of the pandemic. So that sort of moved me then onto the B Corp, or to sort of look at different things or different ways. So I suppose that was more the light bulb moment, I suppose, in life, that sort of opportunity to stop and pause. And Tom was kindly on the talking on last week, which sort of went into that a little bit. And I think a lot of people stopped and reflected on their own life and their own circumstances and what they wanted out of life and what they hoped to help businesses do on their journey as well. So I think that's kind of my light bulb moment, really.
What was it about B Corp that really spoke to you?
So I think I've always had a bit of a loose kind of interest in sustainability. Right back, my actual start of working life was actually as a carpenter and joiner, actually, believe it or not, when I left school. So yeah, strange fact. So I think working with kind of natural materials and wood and timber kind of was always in the background. And also when I mentioned now, we built Red House, we built in a very energy efficient way, and we were very careful to make sure. So there's always been there in the background, a little bit niggling. And I've always sort of had an interest in sort of growing things and so forth and so on. And I think just in 2020, I think it was a really strange time, I think, and a lot of things come around, and we all had a chance, didn't we, to sort of look about and see and enjoy nature and enjoy, the peace and quiet that maybe was when there wasn't the traffic around and there wasn't, different things. And what brought me to B Corp was I felt that business, and I always felt that business has such a key part to play in all the good things we want to see in the world. And I think also business, one thing I learned during my accountancy, one sort of thing that was stuck in my head was that any business only survives the sufferance of society. So, by that I mean customers buy from them, people to work for them, people to supply them, etc., providers of capital. And it's that we've lost track of a little bit. And sometimes business can be a bit arrogant and just assume because they think they know best or they've got the greatest product or whatever, they could just carry on. And every so often they get caught out, as we know, and they fall off. But sometimes I think if they can stop and reflect, I think that's what B Corp helps a business do. It's not just purely about being environmentally sustainable or socially sustainable. It's looking at the bigger picture and the fact that everything's interdependent, the whole thing. And that's what I often say the G bit is, that in the ESG, people overlook, it's the governance. That's the key thing that really makes all businesses work in all shapes and sizes, is that governance and how that kind of influences in the strategy and that side of things. So yeah.
You touch on something, Graham, that I talk to people about a lot, which is the older times were safer and a little bit more secure, and we've entered an age of precarity these days. If I think about how my dad, who worked for Sony actually, but if I think of everything that his job provided for him, And I look at now whether people who doing his equivalent job today would get, the company car and the pensions and the medical and all of that stuff. And it's really not there for anybody, even if they're working for a corporate, let alone an SME. And so I think you're right. For me, the progression of business feels like, well, what's that new what's that new sustainability, that new security that the world of business wants and everybody who works within it.
I think you touched upon a thing there. I didn't like to bring the age thing in, but I think as you do get that bit older and you do reflect, and I think legacy is a thing after comes into it all as well, and what do you want to be left behind. And yeah, I've certainly family and children. We had our youngest is only 5 and our eldest is 18, so big broad spread. So very different stages in life, and our eldest obviously is now reflecting and thinking of what degree and what job and what role. And we very much do live in an era where even if she did pick a very specific degree or career, the chances are she might get literally the end of her degree of 3 or 4 years and that job's gone. It doesn't exist anymore, or it's evolved and changed so rapidly. And you're right, there's a lot of things coming down the track at this present moment in time that we need to kind of reflect on and weave it into our everyday life. And business is the key, So
I think as the world becomes more precarious, the governance aspect that you pointed out, which is making good choices, becomes more and more important. So no, I think that's really interesting. Let's move on to question 2. What did you learn from establishing your product market fit?
This is an interesting one because me and Tom were chatting there just before we come on, just about that kind of B Corp, B leader. And I very much came to it and thought, right, I want to do this for my own business. I sort of dived into it. I thought, this is a bit trickier than I thought. That's what led me to think, well, how can I get better understanding and trained on how to do this? And led me to the B leader thing. And I did enter it thinking, this will be brilliant because I now can go out as a consultant and go, look, not only done this myself, but I actually have some experience and some training and insight into how this all works. And felt that because Northern Ireland, where I'm located, doesn't have any B Corps, brilliant, first to market, fantastic. But it hasn't kind of quite worked out that way, because I think because it was just coming out of the pandemic, and undoubtedly the pandemic did draw a lot of people to B Corp because their time on their hands, and it's one of them things, sort of a bit of a sort of a job put to one side, and now obviously got this time to do this. So I went into B Corp, certainly a B Corp consultant, thinking, yeah, brilliant. All these people interested in this, and that'd be fantastic. And it hasn't quite worked out, and I've struggled then to get that kind of fit in. And as time has evolved, that has improved because the movement has massively moved on in the island of Ireland, which is good because it's just down the road, and across the UK. So that's given me opportunities to then try and weave my service to sort of fit that. And I come into this thinking that I could probably marry the accounting and the B Corp sustainability together. Haven't quite cracked that one yet, but I think that will definitely come, and there's a lot of push towards that kind of impact reporting and people wanting more information out of business to how they're evolving in this space. Carbon footprinting is an obvious one that's coming more to the fore. So
but timing is everything, isn't it? In business, when you choose to start, and it's interesting to reflect upon what you were saying about at the beginning, which resonated with me about saying, you started your business in 2012 and then rehashed it. It is the circumstances do kind of give us that impetus. I was exactly the same. Started my business in 2011 and then revamped it completely in 2020 around exactly those same points. But we never know, do we? We never know if we're meeting the moment quite.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt knows this as well. Sometimes you go there and you can go, I can feel it, but I very much feel this myself. I often think to myself, I think I'll be all right in about 18 months, but I might just be too early with some of this stuff. So I think that's something that I think all founders can definitely, that will resonate with them, that uncertainty around timing.
Yeah, I had a conversation not that long ago, and I put it quite succinctly. He was in sustainability, and he's been in it for like 20 odd years. You can imagine it was tough 20 odd years ago trying to convince people that this is something that needs to be done. It's now become much more. And he said, I was so ahead of the wave. He says, I couldn't even see the wave, was the way he put it. That's often the case, isn't it? So, yeah.
Well, if you've ever seen the video of the guy dancing on his own at the festival, and by the end there's an entire field full of people dancing, that it can feel very like that. You're out on your own looking like an idiot.
Yeah.
But you have to believe, because if you don't believe and dance like an idiot on your own, nobody else is ever going to follow you. So uncomfortable, but true.
Amen to that, Matt.
Moving on to question 3. What support or resource has been most significant in helping you on your founder journey?
I think for me, certainly, as I say, coming out of industry, at the initial sort of 2012, and then it took me a good few years before I suddenly sort of realised to really embrace networking. And that was in person, obviously pre-COVID. And I found really valuable going at least once a week for a couple of hours, just with other people in that similar circumstances. Now, you've all been to, I'm sure, some of these, and you know that some of them end up being a little bit salesy. It's all that like bring referral type thing. And I never really gel with me, to be honest. So rather the ones where it was more about turning up, trying to help other people with their problem, giving your insight, them giving you their insight, and so forth. And that's where Start to Stand Up, post COVID, really gelled with me, because it was brilliant. It was turn up. Initially it was that first Wednesday morning, and that was all it was, and just an opportunity to share your pains and your gains, and hopefully help everybody out on their kind of journey, really. So that, I think, for me, is one of the most valuable things. And I think also when you tend to be on your own, you tend to get very stuck in your viewpoint as well. It's good to have other perspectives. It's good to have a little bit of validation, I think, as well, that this is hard and tough at times, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, or there's people there that are willing to help and support you as you go on that journey.
Do you know what I love about it best? There are many people in the room who are smarter than me. And that's the fundamental thing I want from my networking, is I want to be around people who are going to pull me upwards. And I'll happily, if there's anybody who's behind me in the journey, I'll happily pull them up with me. But that was always my problem in networking, is some of the times I used to be in a room with a lot of micro business, a lot of small businesses, and think and it might sound a bit arrogant, but I always think I'm slightly the smartest person in the room here. Nobody's really going to help me.
The way I think about it is, do I have something to learn? Am I getting something, a different perspective, a solution to a problem, views on a problem? So for me, it's about sort of, am I learning something? As long as I'm learning, I'm happy. As soon as I stop learning, that's where I get itchy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of the groups, even where they do attempt to do some sort of an educational piece or so, it was very, very focused on sales and marketing, which is really key and important, but that's not all of business, and that's where Start to Stand Up does have that. We talk about all sorts of things, funding, even operational things, and ask for people's experience of trying out different things, which is fantastic.
Good. Okay, on to question 4. What's the most surprising thing that's happened to you on your founder journey so far?
I think it's the collaboration piece, and certainly with sustainability, it really took me back a little bit, in terms of how willing people are to kind of share and discuss and share their knowledge and insights. And again, Start to Stand Up, very, very similar, to be honest, compared to maybe in the accountancy space, people are a bit more, well, I suppose accountants are more reserved. I suppose that's possibly the thing as well, generally. But much more openness, I think, has took me back a little bit. People, even where you think, oh, that you've maybe got a competitive advantage telling me this or sharing this information. I think it's also that realization they might share with you the recipe, but they're not giving you the secret sauce, because it's maybe their personality or some little subtle thing. And we all do things every day that if you ask someone to explain to me exactly how you drive, which we're going through at the minute with teenagers, it's very difficult, to verbally convey, because there's certain things you do and you just don't even register you're doing them. So yeah, I think for me it's that collaboration and that kind of sharing, and I think it's really, really good.
I think the sharing thing's really interesting. When I started out in my journey doing, I guess, what you call sort of consultancy work, I built a bunch of tools, and I felt very precious about them to begin with. I thought, these are my hard work. And then I really discovered that actually you can't give this stuff away quite often. And I ended up publishing everything I did under an open source license, because I realized that actually I wanted people to make use of it. It wasn't about me doing it. But to your point, often, if I had worried about sort of, is somebody going to take this and do something with it, really that's actually what I wanted to encourage. So I think that thing about sharing and being open, once you realize that it's actually quite hard work to get people to take your ideas, it completely changes your perspective into, how do I make it as easy as possible? Please steal my stuff. That was a surprise for me. I think there's also something about when you say steal my stuff, what you mean is build on top of me, but acknowledge me. So the opposite is somebody who takes your stuff and repurposes it, packages it as if it's their own thinking. That's often quite annoying. But I don't think that the risk of that is worth not trying to do what you can to make your stuff accessible. And that's I think the point about when we're doing these things, we want our ideas to take off. We want people to become believers. That's actually a really hard thing to do. Going back to the guy on his own in the field, you've really got to be a crazy person to get person number 2 to go, that's the future I want. I'm coming with you. I think this is maybe, I mean, B Corp feels like it might be a little bit, it's not quite one guy on his own in the field, but it's definitely the 2 or 3 people who are happy to be on their own in a field full of people dancing at this point. What pushes it to the next stage, do you think?
It's a combination of pressures from a number of different ways, but the one pressure I think which is only starting to apply really now is from the sort of more conscious consumer, which is a younger consumer, which is sort of like the 30 and younger consumer, and they are definitely a lot more focused and consuming, and also as an employee or looking for careers and future work and stuff. So I think that's where more of the pressure to behave differently in business, and that's not purely from an environmental sustainable, that's also from a social side and lots of other different things, diversity, inclusion, and all them sorts of things are all wrapped up a little bit in it. So I think that's probably what will move the needle.
Would it be fair to say that also what we need is winners? Because there was, for those who don't know, Graham did a fantastic presentation, which you can watch on the Startup Stand Up YouTube channel. And you talked about the old way being extractive in that presentation. And just as an analogy, a couple of weeks ago, I happened to be up in the Cotswolds and I went to Daylesford Organics, big, very impressive farm shop place. Now they're a B Corp and proudly displaying the logo on the doors. And, you know, the car park of Daylesford Organic is full of Porsches and very expensive SUVs. And I thought to myself as I walked in, this place is attracting the great and the good. And that feels like a good thing, that you can see, you know, the money, the elite. I know that might seem a bit sort of elitist, but actually what you can see is the people who want good, you know, and who you know, who have achieved well, they're coming to this place. And there was something about that I thought that kind of speaks to B Corp. It's not just about being sort of putting on the sackcloth and being ever so humble. It's about actually going, we're winning doing this.
What is kind of nice is, yes, you've got some brands that undoubtedly are only going to be attract and have people that obviously have quite a bit of, you know, disposable income, should we say, to utilize. But there is still equally coming, like there's one, for example, it's a workers cooperative, name escapes me at the moment. They produce school uniforms, but they've got, you know, knitwear factories in the north of England. They're giving local good quality employment, and it's an everyday school jumper. That so many things haven't been cracked yet, and people are actively looking for a more sustainable, regenerative, whatever the case may be, product. And that's a great opportunity for startups. And if we look back in the history of time, all these major problems in the past were solved by entrepreneurial individuals who thought, I'm going to have a crack at that. Or if it's nothing new, if it's something that's existing, thought, I can improve upon that, I can re-engineer that, whatever the case may be.
Sounds like a good lead into our last question, Matt.
Indeed it does. Question 5, Graham.
Yes.
What's the North Star you're currently aiming towards?
Oh, I think it comes back to that legacy piece. I think that is it. I think it's just, I want to reflect back. Yes, I think I've either left this in a better place or I've left it in no worse a place than when I arrived, but that way. And I think you touched upon it earlier, Tom. Sometimes, and again, we're all reflective. I think we always think that what went before was so much better, and it's better we had glass bottles and brown paper bags in the vegetable shop and all this sort of stuff. So there is plenty of things to reflect back on, and I think we learn some of them things. It's interesting, the younger generation, certainly for our daughter's case, in terms of fashion and how she now thinks of upcycling or going to the, you know, and then there's all them sort of things that I think we could learn an awful lot as well from or gain a bit of a legacy from the legacy we're creating, if that makes sense. You know, bring their learnings into our lives and refine or redo things. So my North Star, then going back to that point, is legacy, basically, and leaving something positive that's hopefully going to be there and continue on.
I think that's a very nice note to end on, that when you zoom out and you look at all the problems that we have solved in the world, I think it's very easy to then think, actually, yes, as long as we're all, looking with that intent towards playing our part in that, the world will fundamentally continue to get better.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we have lost, which do tend to sort of zone a bit more in on the negative stuff. We need to sort of really look at the more positive outlook, I think, to be honest. Yeah.
That's us founders. That's what we do, isn't it? We approach the world with our own crazy dreams, and let's leave everybody with Matt's the crazy man dancing in the field, and other people to join him. We will all get there, and we will all dance together in the end.
You'll have to tag that little in the outro now, just so people will understand who the mad crazy guy in the field dancing is.
As the editor of this piece, I will try and make that happen.
Very good, very good.
Thank you, Graham.
No worries, thank you.
Graham, Matt, thank you ever so much. And thanks to everybody who's watched. We will see you next time for another edition of Founder Focus. But for the meantime, bye for now.